Right, good afternoon everybody. This is Chris Ogle on Southwest Hearts Community TV, and this is the second of a series of TV shows that we're doing, which are to bring the local election candidates closer to the constituents of the Watford constituency. So today I'm absolutely delighted to have with me Dorothy Thornhill. So Mayor Dorothy Thornhill, please come say hello.
Hi Chris, this is probably the weirdest interview I've ever had. I'm trying to look at you, but you're telling me to look at the camera, so goodness knows what it looks like on screen. But we'll just go with it.
Fantastic stuff. Well, thank you very much for coming on here and allowing us to sort of find out a little bit more about yourself and kind of your plans as we run up to the election, and of course what you plan to do should you be successful and be elected. So a lot of people probably haven't met you in the constituency, so and they probably don't know much about your background. So if you could spend a little bit of time just sharing some of the, if you like, highlights of your living in Watford as a constituent member, and kind of your background and how you've got to kind of be mayor, really, I suppose.
I guess lots of people know who I am, but I think we probably don't share our personal lives with people very much, and yet I think more and more with politicians. People want to know the real person. Who is the real person? I came for Watford, to live in Watford with a job. I graduated from London University as a teacher and was actually willing to have a job anywhere. It was actually in 1977, and there were very few jobs around. I was applying for jobs anywhere and everywhere. I just wanted to teach, and I actually ended up in a school in St Albans, but couldn't afford to live in St Albans, so ended up living in Watford as a young adult, and I've lived here ever since. Got married, had 2 children. Joined my political party one dark night when somebody knocked on the door in the middle of November. I was pregnant with my daughter, had a toddler son, and they actually asked me to get involved. So I looked down at Bump and said, I'm a bit busy, but come back. And they came back, signed me up, and I got involved. Continued teaching, became a counsellor, ended up as assistant head at Queen's School. The biggest shift for me was from being a straight English teacher to becoming a teacher of children with learning difficulties and behaviour difficulties, which I enjoyed till the day I left Queen's School after I became mayor in 2002. Could go on a lot more, but I think that's probably enough, Chris.
So, what attracted you to becoming mayor? I mean, that obviously Watford's got an elected mayor, which is unusual. It's not a ceremonial position; it's actually one that we all vote for. So, what attracted you to that line of work? Because it's not, it wouldn't have been everybody's cup of tea, I guess.
No, it definitely is. And there are more mayors now, actually. I think we're up to about 16, and I think some of the big cities might follow suit in time. To be honest, I had my arm twisted a little bit. It was people thinking that I could do it. I certainly enjoyed my time as a councillor, and I absolutely loved. I found out about the town when I was the civic mayor. That's when I would say I really began to feel that this place was special and close to my heart, and it was a fabulous opportunity to do that. I also looked at how the council was run. Older members in the town will probably remember that it wasn't run well. We were named and shamed as one of the worst performing district councils in the country. And as I looked from the opposition benches, I thought, we can do this better. We've got to be able to do this better. So the mayoralty presented itself, and I needed a little injection of confidence to put my foot up, to step up to the role. But I'm certainly delighted that I did, because I can honestly say that I've really enjoyed my time.
I mean, the last year we had the election where you were re-elected. Yeah. Was it the 4th term?
Yeah, that's right.
And now we're in a situation where, and there was a little bit of a kind of controversy over whether you would stand for the MP role or whether you would just see out your time as the mayor. So what prompted you to stand as MP? Because this is a really important constituency, and I think it's since 1974. Whatever's happened in Watford has been the result of the general election. So all eyes are on Watford, aren't they?
Yeah, Watford tends to go with the government, as they say. But things are always different when the Lib Dems come out to play. We kind of spoil the two main parties' little game, really. I mean, Watford was very much, oh, it's our turn now, so who shall we have? Oh, it's our turn. And to be honest, we've got a history of people moving to Watford, especially to just stand for the seat because it's their turn. Our current MP is no exception to that. Claire Ward, our last MP, was the same. You can keep going right back. But I think things are changing in the country, not just in Watford. I think people have had enough of the two-party politics. I think we're seeing real diversity and change. And so I think, yes, Watford will be interesting, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go exactly the same way as it always does. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to stand. I've been mayor for nearly 13 years now, and during that time I've learned so much about our town. And what I've really learned is that the key big issues for Watford need national involvement and national cooperation to change. There's only so much you can do locally. And I feel, you know, that my team, and it isn't just me, believe you me, have got good aspirations for Watford, but the entrenched problems need a strong voice in Westminster, and I believe I would be a strong voice for the whole of our community.
So in terms of what, you know, the position, 7th of May comes around, the Lib Dems are successful. What are the key things that you mentioned there that you would be fighting for Watford? What are those key topics that you feel that national support, if you like, is needed for?
Well, I think interestingly, your first comment is interesting because I actually think the Lib Dems will do a lot better than people are predicting. You know, I kind of take a bet on that now. But my key priorities for Watford will, of course, be securing the future of Watford Hospital. Whilst being mayor, we had the big fight as to whether the main hospital will be Hemel or Watford, and I strongly led that. I can honestly claim that. To keep the hospital here. So our priority will be to see what happens with the new clinical strategy that the chief exec, our now ex-chief exec, has been saying, but actually to make sure that the whole of South West Herts, and it's important, it's not just Watford, it's Hemel, it's St Albans, that we have 21st century healthcare, which is why the land at the health campus is so important, to allow the hospital to expand if it needs to build new facilities on fresh land. You know, my priority as mayor is to keep that open as long as possible for the hospital, and hopefully the time is coming when they will actually tell us their plans. So the hospital is a key one. I think there are, our next big issue is very definitely homes. It saddens me that so many of our young people, young professionals, people out there earning an average wage, can't afford a roof over their heads. So I think that's something that can't be solved locally. It's not something we can build ourselves out of the problem, because certainly we're doing that in Watford. And I very soon realised that this was something that needed, you know, national intervention.
So, I mean, coming on to the, I mean, we've now got the, I mean, I look back at the last few years, and there's some pretty good things that have happened in Watford, which I know you've been involved in. The certainly, I think the top of the town redevelopment has been a really good thing. That's and a lot of people I speak to have indicated that they think now it's happened, that actually it was a good thing, although I know there were quite a few battles over.
Always comes back. Yeah.
And I think the big events thing that have been going off, and I don't know, when does the big events finish? I mean, there's a big one this weekend, isn't there? But is there?
It's not going to finish. We passed our budget in council a few weeks ago, and we've included money for a future programme. It was so successful, and people to be honest, they loved having somewhere to go that was different. But the comments that I read on the feedback form that I loved the most was that people felt it brought the town together. It brought community spirit. You know, people were writing things like "proud to be a Watford resident," and to me, that was what it was all about. It's about actually making sure that we come together as a community, but that we regenerate that top of the town, which only ever comes alive when people are coming out late at night to drink. And you can hear all our phones in the background there, Chris. Sorry about that.
No problem. I mean, there are a couple of issues which I'm not asking you to come up with resolutions or stuff, but there are a couple of things which are sort of rumbling around in the background. And you've mentioned earlier the health campus, and you know, I know that's gone back to court again will be going back for the third time. I did interview Sarah the other week, and she laid out her view of what's happened there. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, there's two sides to this, and they're quite entrenched at either end of the spectrum. Are there any sort of lessons we can learn here from, in terms of like a bit of compromise on both sides, or something? Because it's still quite a thorny issue, isn't it?
That's really interesting you should say that, because actually what I would say is that this is one issue where there is no compromise, and that's why it's the way it is. I think I'm really good at finding a win-win, and have done with lots of issues across the town. But if the question is, do you use these allotments as part of a regeneration scheme or do you not? What's the compromise? Use half of the allotments? I'm not quite sure that that would have been satisfactory for either side. I think sadly this is a case of you know, two sides to the story, and people will, you know, obviously fall on both sides. You know, I'm not happy to be at war with a group of residents. That's not how I would want to do business. But fortunately, the vast majority of people actually do understand the issues. They may have some reservations or some concerns, but as soon as I tell them that we're re-providing the allotments elsewhere in the town, that we're actually compensating the allotment holders. In fact, I've had a lot of flack from current allotment holders telling me that we're compensating them too much. So you can't win some arguments. And of course, we are replacing their sheds and their plants and all of this. So we're trying to be absolutely fair, re-provide the allotments, but say we think it would be better if this whole site were regenerated. And in that regard, perhaps there just aren't compromises to be made, unfortunately, Chris.
Okay, the other one that is a bit close to my heart, I mean, as you probably know, I've been born and bred in Watford, went to Watford Grammar School, etc. So I have a huge history. I remember the old market opening and walking through it, and well, actually I wasn't that impressed with the old market, to be honest. Now the market's moved up the town. It's a completely different proposition, and I've spoken with Andrew Sparrow from Town and Country and a lot of the market traders as well. And again, I think there's a lot of work to do there. It's suffering quite badly at the moment, but it's one of those things. I think everybody underestimated what a move 200 metres up the road was actually going to lead to be honest. But it's a real challenge. I mean, I don't know what you think about it, but it's a real problem.
Well, I'm not happy to have a market that's not thriving and successful. Of course I'm not. But what I hope is that people, by now, they know me. And what I hope they will realise is that A, I'm not happy, and B, I'm going to do my damnedest to try and solve the problem. What I've learned is that markets rarely move and transform immediately, that talking to other people in other places, it's quite usual to have this sort of thing happening. And in many ways, I wish we'd have been forewarned and we might have been able to perhaps plan differently around it. But what we didn't want to do was take a failing market out of a bad location and just replace it in an equally failing bad location. So I think there has to be a transition time, and I think we have to be quite, dare I say it, ruthless, and actually look at the stalls, look at what kind of market we want. What I suspect at the moment is we're trying to please too many people, and probably that we're pleasing none. So the physical stuff that the traders complain about, I absolutely accept, the heaters, the need for a screen and all of that. even down to the fact that we need to brighten it up, and all of those things will happen. I can guarantee that. But actually the running of the market, the mix of stalls, what brings people in, the footfall and all of that, that's really up to town and country markets who are running the market. And I think they may just have to finalise those plans, get in their mind, you know, who are they trying to appeal to, who is this market for, and get the stalls in that will drive people beating a path to the stalls, and increasing it as a vibrant and popular place to go. We're not there yet. It's because I believe we're in a transition and we're actually trying to please too many people, and we haven't really decided who the market's for, and what kind of a market that we want.
I mean,
so what's this space, I guess?
Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, that one, but I mean I'm keeping quite close to it because I use the market twice a week myself, so I'm actually speaking to people down there, and it's yeah, something's got to happen. But I mean I might actually call on you and have a meeting with you with Andrew Sparrow, because I've got some ideas which we could throw around about that particular subject as well. So
yeah, lots of people have been giving me ideas, and it's quite interesting the kind of things people are coming up with. Young people are saying, well, we're not going in there because it hasn't got the stalls for us. The old people are saying some of our stalls have gone. I think it is about the mix and what's in there. I think we need to look at that quite carefully. But I have to meet with you anytime, Chris.
Okay. Can you give us a quick update on what's happening with the redevelopment of the market area, you know, the old Charter Place? Is there any new?
Well, that's all systems go. Unfortunately, we don't see it. So we've now transferred all the land over to Into. So they are now the proud owners, and that was why the market had to move and all the rest of it. Everybody is now sorted out in Charter Place and will be all on their way soon. At the moment, what's happening is all behind the scenes stuff. It's all legal stuff, it's plans, it's preparation. But Into are determined to make it work, and still determined that it will be one of the nicest shopping centres in this part of the world. And we've got no reason to think that that won't happen. I think the sad thing is, of course, Charter Place now looks horrible and quite depressing. So the sooner, I've asked them if they'll put up some nice wraps to show what it will look like during the couple of years that it's all been sorted, just to remind people that actually it is going to be completely redeveloped, and it will be, and we all look forward to going to our new IMAX cinema and shopping in shops that we don't have at the moment.
Okay, I mean, we've talked a bit about Watford there now. I mean, what are the key national election issues that the Lib Dems are aiming for, and what are your views on them, just to sort of wrap up the call, sort of just to give people an idea of how you see it?
I think that anybody who thinks that the economy still isn't the main issue is living in cloud cuckoo land. I think all the parties have to recognise that we are not out of the woods. You know, yes, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and things are improving, and certainly in Watford with the businesses, that is my experience. Talking to bank managers, they're saying that they're lending more because businesses now are willing to take risks and are borrowing again. So I think the economy is improving, but certainly as a country we're still in debt and things have to be sorted out. I think the arguments will be around how much public spending, how much you cut, and things like that. And I think where the Lib Dems have got quite a unique pitch is that we certainly have put the brakes on some of the Conservative cuts. I think we have held their feet to the fire and tried to bring out a more caring side to things. I think we've held off things. I think we know that. But I think we absolutely understand fiscal responsibility. So I think we would, in that sense, we would tame Labour's tendencies to want to spend more and get more into debt. And I think we would, certainly be more caring than the Conservatives. So I think that is quite a unique pitch. I believe that we're absolutely passionately committed to the NHS, and at the moment we're the only party that has agreed with the Chief Exec of the NHS in terms of the money that he believes the NHS needs, and we've committed to that funding, and we absolutely know where we'll find it and get it from. And then close to my heart, because it's close to my leader's heart, is education. And I don't think we can underestimate the good that the pupil premium has done. And we would like to see the pupil premium, which is for disadvantaged children, and it's extra money into schools, which obviously benefits everybody. We would like to see that rolled out more. But the real issue behind that is that, to us, the fact that a parental attitude to education is still the single most determining factor in how well you do at school is plain wrong in the 21st century. And we would really want to be working to make sure that every child has a good chance in our brilliant schools in Watford. We've got some of the best schools in the country. So education would probably be my top third priority, and it's certainly one of my party's top priorities.
Well, one of the thank you for that. One of the hot potato issues is Europe and the freedom of movement between Europe, and obviously that is immigration. And Watford is a town which has got a fair share and probably extra some immigration going on here. But we've always been a town that's accepted people coming in over the years. I can remember certainly. And we've got Polish shops popping up in different parts of the town and stuff. There are a lot of people out there, as there are in the nation, that are saying, the problems we've got is from the freedom of movement. I mean, I personally don't believe that. I actually think that it's okay. But where do you sit on that?
I think that Watford has always been a welcoming town. And I think that we're a mini UK. We represent the whole of the UK. I think the worrying thing about arguments that are just around freedom of movement is that somehow you can put up the borders and you can stop people coming into Britain. Now, I absolutely agree that the borders at the moment are porous. I think it would be wrong to say that that we do everything that we can do. I think the Home Office does need to get its act together in that regard. But actually, the world is expanding. We live in a global economy, and the idea that UKIP say that we can somehow retrench back to a time when nobody came in and we're like we were in the 1950s, this scaredy cat kind of existence. Any young person will tell you they can talk to people at the other side of the world, they can communicate, they can move. The world is actually huge, and dealing with the problems of globalization are things that we should be giving our mind to, and actually looking at how we actually deal with the reality of what the world is now, not this fantasy land of what it was in the 1950s. So I believe that most people genuinely want answers to questions, and the main parties have dodged those questions because they're difficult. So I think we need to address people's genuine concerns, tell them what's going on, tighten up on our borders, but actually not be afraid to say, actually, there are good sides to this. There's a positive side. We've just not been any good at that. We've just dodged it. And UKIP have brought the issue into the open, and I think that's a good thing. But I think most people, when they get the facts and when they're told what happens, and when the main parties actually start saying, there are things that we can do to toughen up. And perhaps we should look at entitlement of people. We've just changed our housing policy, for example. You've got to have lived in Watford for 4 out of the last 5 years to be entitled to go on the social housing register, and I think people welcome that. I don't think there's anything wrong in that, but I do think that we should look at entitlement, but we can't row back. We can't pretend that the world is where it was 40, 50 years ago. That's just not the world that we live in. Far from it. The world it's a global world, and we should be living and dealing with the problems of that world, not painting a fantasy land that I'm not actually sure ever really existed.
Yeah, I mean, one of my I mean, I have some good friends who are here from the old Eastern Bloc, and actually going to a foreign country. I mean, I can imagine me going to Poland, not being able to speak the language, looking to build my future. That's quite a brave thing to do, and I have probably the utmost respect for people who travel across great country, travel to a completely new country, seeking a better life. That's a challenging thing to do. I don't know how many of us would actually entertain a prospect or a proposition like that.
Well, I remember having a family discussion when I was a child of going to Australia for £10 or £1, whatever it was, in the 60s. That, you know, people were knocking on your doors in your neighbourhoods, in poor neighbourhoods, and actually suggesting that you emigrate to Australia. So people will always go where their prospects are going to look better. You know, I would do the same. I mean, I've got a sister-in-law who lives in Bahrain. I've got a son who's going to teach in Panama next year. It's what I said before. You know, it's a big wide world out there. So what we should be concentrating on is people's, you know, entitlement to be here, and then entitlement of what they have of a scarce public resource when they get here. And I've got no problems about tightening up on those two things while still having a welcoming heart to people who want to improve their lives and make their lives better. You know, I'm actually behind them on that, because I'd do the same if I needed to.
Fantastic. Well, I think we've had a good conversation. Yeah. I think we've had a good conversation, and we've kind of covered quite a bit of ground. So we'll call it a day for this occasion. We may have a second round of these where we maybe bring a couple of guests on to join in the conversation. But I want to thank you for coming on today and spending this half hour or so with us. I thank you for that, and I will put this out there, and people can watch it. And I wish you all the best for the coming election.
People need to engage more. That's actually the single biggest problem we've got, is distrust in the political systems and disengagement. That's the one big thing I would love to change, but I haven't got a magic wand, unfortunately. Bye, Chris.
Okay, take care now. Thank you very much.